Recreation and Community Services, April 7th meeting. Iris, could we have roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioners Bennett,
Yes.
Khan,
Here.
Patrick,
Here.
Rotfogel,
Here.
President Sharkey.
Here.
The agenda for the April 7th, 2010 meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall and on the City of Glendale's website on Thursday, April 1st, 2010 at 1 p.m. Item 2, Introductions and Presentations. 2A, Volunteer Recognition.
And I will just briefly state that Iris, ironically, is also our volunteer coordinator for the department. We have had a number of very valuable volunteers over the course of the past year, so we thought it would be nice to take the opportunity, since April is Volunteer Recognition Month, to allow Iris to recognize some very valuable folks who have helped us out during the past year. So I'll hand it right back to Iris.
Great.
Thank you, Brittany. Good afternoon, President Sharkey, members of the Commission. Between the recording period of March 1st, 2009 and February 28th, 2010, close to 300 volunteers dedicated nearly 7,700 hours of service to the Community Services and Parks Department. This is over 3,200 hours more than last year. So needless to say, the department is very appreciative of every single volunteer who served, be it 1 hour or the 1,281 hours served by our top volunteer. I would like to extend a special thank you to our many station fire recovery volunteers who helped us fill thousands of sandbags in just a few hours. And today we are giving special recognition to the top volunteers in our various sites and programs. We are joined by some of our site volunteer coordinators who will be introducing them to you. I'd like to begin by calling Patty Betancourt, Community Services Specialist, who will introduce a teacher being recognized today for her instrumental role in the recruitment of volunteers.
Hi.
And she's also. Thank you. Volunteered 128 hours last summer, but she's on vacation with her family, so she was unable to be here.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call up Seva Garbedian, Community Services Coordinator at the Adult Recreation Center.
Good afternoon, President Sharkey, members of the Commission. My name is Seva Garbedian, and I'm responsible for senior programs at the Adult Recreation Center. The volunteers that work at the Adult Recreation Center assist staff in the following ways. They greet participants at the front desk, they attend to the coffee station, lead the bingo, serve meals, or organize the participants in the open play billiards program. They also lend a hand for various crafts, programs, and celebrations, from helping us be creative or making sure everybody is taken care of during the event. The first volunteer I'd like to recognize is Olga Guevara, who recorded 225 hours over the last year.
We want to get a picture. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
I got one, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next is Anita Bayoko, and she recorded 242 and a half hours.
How many hours?
242.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Margie Baruski, and Margie recorded 372 hours. Next, we have Gloria Teeper, and Gloria recorded 422 and a half hours.
Did we get you? Did you get her glasses off? Thank you so much.
Anita Preisler had a doctor's appointment. She couldn't make it today. Next, we have Julia Amescua, and she recorded 608 hours.
Thank you.
And our last one is Yegnazar Patatanyan, who recorded 1,281 hours.
Yeah. What areas did he volunteer in?
Mr. Patatanyan is responsible for making sure everybody gets a chance to play in the open play billiards program. So he has the tough job of wrangling everybody, making sure everything's in order, following the rules, and we don't abuse our welcome at Pacific Community Center for the time being we're there.
I don't think anyone wants to mess with him.
No, I certainly don't.
We're also going to recognize two volunteers that were unable to attend. Richard Jover, who volunteers in our Master Soccer program and served 308 hours, and Varduhi Manukian, who volunteered at Pacific Community Center and served 432 hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone. We couldn't do it without you. Okay, are we ready?
Okay.
So-
Item 3, Commission staff comments.
I believe Commissioner Patrick had a comment, and
Yes, I just wanted to say that I had the opportunity to attend the Glendale Beautiful meeting on Tuesday and to watch Parks and Recreation and particularly Lila Batar be receiving an award for the Heritage Garden. So I just wanted to congratulate everybody that worked on that project. And it's a beautiful project, and I know Lila's going to say something about it a little bit later, but congratulations, and I'm really, really pleased with the way it turned out.
Yeah, I second.
okay. Anyone else have staff or staff?
Rodney?
Oh, there's a staff
I have
person.
nothing exciting to say.
Oh, okay.
President Sharkey, members of the commission, I believe we have one more recognition that we
Oh,
may have
okay.
accidentally
Yes, I
overlooked.
do apologize. I skipped over. Nune Sogomonian, Community Services Specialist, will present for Youth and Family Services Program.
That's important.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Nuna Sogumunyan, and I work with Youth and Family Services as well as Therapeutic Recreation. I am actually here to honor a young man, Daniel Warden. He has done 48 hours and has been part of the program for over 3 years. He has helped with many events that we have. He's front step for the staff. Whenever I need a volunteer, I know that I could call him, and he'll be the first one to arrive, so I'd like to honor him and thank him. Also, we have two other volunteers who couldn't make it, Andrew Zuta and Andrew Zimajian. Andrew Zuta has done 155 hours, and Andrew Zimajian has done 50 hours. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Wow.
I do have one question. Brittany, if somebody was watching this and they wanted to volunteer to in this or in these or any other areas, who would they contact?
That is a very good question, Commissioner Rottfogel. They would actually contact Iris Hidalgo in our office. Iris, again, is our volunteer coordinator, and they can contact her through our main telephone number, which is 818-548-2000. Also, there's information up on our department's website, including a volunteer application form and different types of varieties of activities that they can volunteer. So, yes, we love and appreciate all of our volunteers, as you can see, and we, without them, you know, they make up a big chunk of essentially our staff force. So, yes, we very much appreciate all their help.
And can always use more.
Always.
Always.
Never have enough volunteers. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Khan?
You sure?
Okay.
Nope.
Commissioner Bennett? Nope. Okay. All right. No more
Item-
staff comments? Okay, go ahead.
Item 4, oral communications.
Okay. When-
Item 5A, approval of the minutes of the commission regular meeting held on March 3rd, 2010.
I'll move the minutes from March 3rd.
Second?
Okay.
I do have one correction, though. It said, under Commission staff comments, Commissioner Khan commented on his experience at the Arbor Day celebration and Winter Wonderland event. Although I'm sure those events were very exciting, it wasn't me who attended.
I believe it was me.
So,
I'll certainly make that
other than that
correction.
change,
Okay. Commissioner Rothvogel was ready to go with,
Yeah.
give you the credit, so. Okay. So, do you want to?
I'll
Okay.
move it with the correction.
And I'll second it with the correction.
Thank you, Rodney.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes.
Khan,
yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Rothvogel,
Yes.
President Sharkey.
Yes.
Item 6A, under Business Agenda Action Item 6A1, proposed float design for the 2011 Tournament of Roses Parade.
And at this time, I would like to call Gary Ackerman, president of the Glendale Rose Float Association, to the podium to make his presentation.
If you give me a moment to get the easel.
If you can believe it already is that time of year again, too.
Yeah.
That is the proposed 2011 Glendale Rose Float. It's a giant billows camera with various frames around depicting life in Glendale. I know the question always is when I come here, how does this represent Glendale? The question is, how does it not represent Glendale? Glendale is over 100 years old. Weddings, my mother and father were married in Glendale. I was married in Glendale. And we've had a lot of history of families in Glendale. And it's a good time to celebrate the ethnicity, the diversity in Glendale. Any comments?
You had mentioned you were going to make the frame a
Yeah,
little smaller in the
we
front.
We're going to ask Phoenix to make this frame
Yeah,
a little smaller. And this, and there was another question from the board to make this cheese here not look so much like a wedding cake. And we cannot put a baby first birthday on the float because you can't have a 1-year-old baby on the float. So
Okay.
kid just doesn't get to go. Steve.
What is the theme of the parade this year?
Building friendships, memories, and dreams. I think this fits in very well. It's going to have strobe lights up here, which will, or LED lights, which will flash. I think the mouse on top could be a little smaller, I'm not sure. My loving wife said instead of the cheese down there, we ought to be dangling cheese, but that was kind of voted away.
And it will say cheese.
It will say cheese in front. Commissioner Ben?
Is that Mickey Mouse?
No, it is
I was
not.
going to ask.
Is there an issue? Or I guess one thing, maybe we should make it and get some money from Disney as a co-sponsor.
Anything's possible.
And two, if it isn't, is there a copyright issue? Because it sure looks
There
like...
would be. No, this mouse is just a mouse.
So the Disney lawyer would have no problem with
There's
that.
been many comical mouses. Mighty Mouse.
Okay, okay. I guess my biggest concern is there's something on there that I think most people maybe have never seen, and that's roughly an 80-year-old camera. I certainly don't know of anybody who is capturing memories with something like that. What is there?
When Glenda started, they did.
I understand, but
and
those
a
people
digital-
will not be here, I assume, to see the float.
And a digital camera wouldn't have the same effect.
Okay, so it's artistic and aesthetic and has
Right.
nothing to do with relevance.
Right.
Okay.
Gary, how many how many of those frames will there be real people, and how many of them will be flowers?
In each and every frame, there'd be one or more person on both sides of the float, the camera side and the non-camera side. Because Glendale Rose Float Association contributes to the city virtually half the cost of the float to the city to help pay for it. That's how we make our money, is selling the rides on the float. Like last year, our granddaughter rode on the time of her life.
So the 50,000 isn't just people donating because they like Glendale and a float. They pay to get on there.
Yes.
Why don't we charge more?
We do what we can.
Okay, I like that.
Sometimes we really struggle to get riders. This year, we're going to really have a real drive early. In the past, we used to have the Dreaming of Roses, and we auctioned off the floats.
Yeah,
Yes,
that looks
I
like
remember.
That looks like that's a prime. That would be a prime location there. Somebody got to pay.
So
big
how many
bucks for
how
it.
many seats?
Yeah, how many spaces do we have?
I
to
don't
auction
know.
off?
In the past, we've had up to 12. In years ago, we had 36 on the float. That was way back in the 1920s.
Wow.
And don't forget the frames will be all the way around. So.
Yes.
In the 20s, that was probably the population of the city.
Yes.
Well, I like the idea.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to attend this meeting, and there was a lot of discussion about these frames and the fact that you can have groups of people in a frame or you can have one person in a frame. So there's a lot of opportunity to have lots of different memories represented in the various frames. And I think this hasn't been redone since we saw it that night, has it? Or has it?
It was changed somewhat, but I don't exactly recall how they changed it.
I think they added another frame on it.
It could be, but we'd like to have these frames smaller so the camera is
Yeah.
more embellished.
Or raise up the camera.
So we looked at a lot of designs.
Probably about 40 or so, maybe 30.
Yeah, there were a lot of designs to look at that night, and I'm sure you'd done some work before, and this one just seems to fit in quite nicely into the friendship memories and dreams. So everyone that was there, that was at that meeting, was really focusing on this particular design.
And we're very fortunate to have Councilman Weaver, who does the...
Yes, he was there
fruit sheet
also.
To decorate it. He's very fastidious in how he does it.
Are the photographs that we're seeing, or the images there, is that final, or is that
No, that's...
kind of a work in progress, so to
That's
speak?
just the artist's conception
Wow.
of what will be there. We thought we'd have maybe a Glendale High and a Hoover football player.
Sure.
Or
players.
Right,
maybe
lots of football
scouts
team,
or
maybe.
a family portrait of a lot of people. We can do a lot of stuff on the float. We haven't decided exactly yet what.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have a motion to?
I'll move that we refer this to City Council for their final approval.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Commissioners Bennett,
No.
Khan,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Rob Fogel,
Yes.
President Sharkey.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, what is next, please?
Item 6A2, proposed fees for sports facilities and programs.
President Sharkey, members of the commission, it is once again that time of year, budget season. Oh my goodness, when we are all taking a look at our budgets, and part of that budget process for our department and many other departments is taking a look at the fees that we're offering. So Gabrielle Golia is here to talk about some proposed fee adjustments for the sports complex and other sports programs. I think you'll find in her report that there are a few fees that we are recommending some increases on, but there are also a few fees that we are recommending that we consider rolling back on, much like the Civic Auditorium circumstance where we may have adjusted them a little too high in our last fee adjustment and have lost some permits, so we're reassessing those fees at this time. So I'll turn it over to Gabrielle to go through the report.
Good afternoon, President Sharkey, members of the Commission. I'm Gabrielle Golia, and I'm the supervisor at the Glendale Sports Complex. I'm bringing to you today, as Brittany said, some adjustments, not necessarily all increases, but also some decreases in our rates. The first one that we have listed in our package for you is actually a whole new set of fees that's new to our department, which is an advertising rate at the complex. A lot of our youth groups and our users are looking for ways to increase their revenue as the economy is getting tighter, and we didn't have any policy in place as to monitor where they put their banners, when they put banners up, who put banners up. And so we've created a policy for the sports complex and the skate park as a pilot program in here. And this will allow groups to put in an application for a banner, and we can review what's going on to the banner, the size of the banner, how it will be printed and how it will look, and then pending that approval from the sports office and the administration, they'll be able to place their banner on the fences at either the soccer fields or the sports complex ball fields or around the skate park. We have some proposed fees for this, which is for a corporate sponsorship, which would be if Disney or Nestle came straight to us and said they want to advertise, or if we were looking for additional revenue and we wanted to go to one of those corporate businesses and say, we'd love to advertise your business on our facility, and this is how many people will come. We're proposing that they pay $200 per month to have that banner placed along the outfield fences where all of the people in the stands could see it. For local businesses, these would be local restaurants, not the large corporate businesses, local shops, that sort of thing. It would be $100 per month proposed. For nonprofit advertising, and we're thinking of groups like our Little League or AYSO advertising their own organizations, we're proposing a $50 per month fee for that banner. And then in order to help those youth groups out, if they're looking to put up a banner from one of their sponsors, so if AYSO gets a sponsorship from Disney, and Disney is paying them $500 for their season, and in return they put up a banner for them, then we would ask that they pay 25% of whatever they've received from that company, and then they can put up that banner for the entire season. And we have a predetermined youth group season for each of the sports. Again, all of these banners would be approved prior to being placed up to make sure that the business and the material on the banner is appropriate for a city facility, and we'll be placing the banners ourselves. We won't be allowing the youth groups to go out and put them up and possibly damage fences or do anything that could not look nice. So that is the banner portion of our policy.
And let me just interject real quick. Also to note that this is part of the efforts that we had discussed with our youth sports group some time ago. President Sharkey was in those very meetings, and we wanted to try to come up with some kind of banner or signage or advertising program that would work for both the leagues and for us. Many of them have said, geez, we could get these sponsorships, but we don't know, what size, where they go. And the thought also with this particular program is that depending upon the success of this program, these are fees and policies that could essentially be carried over onto other citywide fields, again, not only to help with some of the maintenance shortfalls that we may have internally, but help the Little Leagues to sell advertising space and in turn raise some sponsorships for their leagues as well.
Yeah, in that meeting, the leagues had said they'd like to do something, and it's nice to see they came through. Very creative.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, I read through this, and I think this particular part of it is really well done, and there's a lot of detail here. But I was looking at the signage guidelines.
Yes.
And it does say companies as well as wording must be approved by the sports complex supervisor for appropriate material. Mm-hmm. Do you somewhere have something in writing that talks about appropriate in terms of companies? Because I know the city is also looking at doing advertising other places. Is there something, are there going to be guidelines that say we're not going to advertise beer.
Alcohol to youth,
Yeah,
exactly.
that kind of thing.
There's nothing specifically in writing as a part of this policy, which was why we kind of had left it in here. And if the commission would like, we can absolutely put that in writing and come back with something that's a little bit more detailed out as to what we will allow and what we won't allow. For instance, nicotine or alcohol on a youth field is not appropriate.
Commissioner Patrick, I think the other reason we wanted to, at least initially starting off, keep it a little bit more generic was to see what types of things came in. I mean, this is the first time in Glendale we're ever proposing something like this. We've heard from a few of the Little Leagues and AYSO that they may have some potential sponsors, but we're not quite sure what type of overwhelming demand that there will be, but know that there is some interest out there in the community. And ultimately, George, as our department head, would have final discretion as to the appropriateness of either the type of company or business, or what, if they had questionable images on their banner, even if it wasn't, if it's a car wash that had maybe a inappropriate picture or something of people washing their cars. That would be the type of thing that if Gabrielle at first glance looked at it and said, I would need to get this approved by our administration. But it's kind of hard to set up very specific and catch everything.
Right.
But we can make it more detailed if that's the desire.
Has this policy gone through the city attorney's office?
No, because the policy for something like this doesn't necessarily have to go through the attorney's office for review, but we can ask them to do so.
Well, I think it's fine to start out this way. I just have some concerns that you might find yourself in the middle of something with someone, worst case scenario, saying, oh, you are infringing on my right to advertise, and that it probably would be a good idea to do some homework before that happens, rather than having to deal with it when it comes up. So that was really my question.
Okay.
And maybe,
Point well taken, yeah.
as part of the initial policy, we say, we won't advertise any alcohol or tobacco products and other things that,
Has to be youth appropriate.
It has to be, and then it has to be youth appropriate. For example, no alcohol or tobacco products will be allowed. And by calling it youth appropriate, that really encompasses a lot, but really says where we want it to go.
That's a very, very good point.
A couple other, just two small points. Hopefully this is going to be real popular, so you're going to have a couple issues like this. It's a little unclear to me what corporate versus local business, and for instance, what is Portos? And I just use that as an example. You may want to think through the difference between, and the other issue might be a one of priority. Mm-hmm. Clearly, it looks to me like you'd like to have lots of corporate folks because there's more money. On the other hand, I love AYSO, so you may want to think about what your priority is. If it's a really successful program and you get more people than you could possibly put banners up for, how are you going to make that decision?
Absolutely.
There's a few things. First of all, I think what you raised should be addressed sooner rather than later. Mm-hmm. I don't think we should say, okay, well, just in general, we'd like to do this. Because I can think of things other than tobacco products or alcohol. I could think of names of companies that you would not want those names listed. There's a coffee company on Brand Boulevard that has a certain name that you would not want listed on the youth fields. Things like that. So I think certainly the city attorney's office should weigh in before we adopt this, and maybe get some clarification as to what that is. I agree also in terms of what you're mentioning, corporate level or what's not. I think it's Disney's very obvious, right, but some of the others are not. Right. Yeah, that's what I think we should be trying to encourage this.
Yes.
So
yes. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, write them a letter.
Yeah.
I also had made a note about corporate versus local, and I think one way maybe to make a differentiation is to do it with the number of employees. In other words, Portos is a great example. They're a corporation, I'm sure, but they probably don't have more than 200 or 100 or 250 employees or whatever the number is, so that would be a good way to differentiate.
There's several, I mean, the other would be revenue, but I mean, right, I mean, there's an objective way of doing that, and I just want to, there's an issue, but right.
Those are all wonderful suggestions,
And then-
and we'll be happy to.
These are up for instance, the AYSO are up on those fields for the entire period, not just when they're playing on them, correct?
Yes, that at this point in time, if an AYSO group or a Little League group wanted to put up banners during their games and they hold the permit for it, and this is actually any group that reserves a field. If there's a private reservation on the field and they hold the permit, they may put banners up with their sponsors for the duration of their game and then remove them at the end of their game so that they're not staying up throughout any other reservations.
Will this preclude that then if...
This would allow whatever group is paying for it to keep their banners up 24/7 during the duration of their rental period.
And then how does the Little League team that has a local sponsor that wants to put up a banner for that one game, will they still be able to do that?
Yes. Well, the reason we have it so that the staff are putting up the banners and that there's approval before is so that we can make sure we leave space for the local groups. And at this point in time, this is only for the sports complex, so it does affect AYSO. However, Little League doesn't use the sports complex quite as often, so that's more of private rentals only. But yes, on the soccer fields, we would make sure that within the fence space all the way around, we're leaving space for the local AYSO group if they aren't already advertising to put up their own banners for the games.
It's the prices per month. Is there going to be a minimum? Is there going to be a minimum for the period that they have to commit to?
Just 1 month at a time.
A month at a
is
time.
what we're proposing.
Okay.
Yes.
I think you'll find that they'll sell real quick at these prices.
We're hoping so.
These prices, are they, like, La Cañada High School has them all over, or is
Well,
that,
I think
are
for
we
the
in the
first year
same
now.
price?
We have found these prices based on some experience that we had mostly at the skate park and a little bit at the sports complex where we had groups coming to us. For instance, Disney and Active Sports and some of the mobile phone companies have come to us wanting to put up banners at both of those facilities, and these are their proposed prices.
Okay.
For the corporate levels coming down from there. So we're basing it off of what the competition seems to be out there and what the going rate seems to be.
It's a good idea, though.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's a great idea.
And we'll make these changes and bring them back to you
Thank
for
you.
final approval on this portion of it.
Okay.
Brittany, would you like me to proceed with the other
go ahead and
fees?
move on to the
Okay.
skate park.
We have some other fees that are proposed for some of our other facilities, just a few here and there. The Verdugo Skate Park, we'd like to propose some new fees related to special events and films and raise our fee for the skate camp. We'd like to propose a private rental rate for the skate park for private rentals that take place during non-operational hours only. This way it doesn't have an impact on the public who are already using the skate park. We are open from 10 a.m. until 10 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday, and we don't open until 2 p.m. on the weekdays. So there are hours where people may come in and want to rent it. We have had some requests, which is why we decided to bring this fee forward. And we are proposing $150 an hour for the skate park, and this would be for birthday parties or private events. Someone wants to put on a private skate park event and rent it out. And that will include the staff to come in and open it up and be there for them, and they will have to provide insurance for liability issues. We have a proposed photo shoot fee. Currently, we already have photo shoot rates approved by the commission for the skate park. However, they were for a whole day's rental. And we realized that some of our smaller shoots don't want to rent for the whole day. They only need it for 3 or 4 hours, and we're losing revenue by turning these people away because they can't afford to pay for the entire day. So we broke that daily rate down we basically divided by 8 hours as a whole day and came up with a rate of $210 per hour on the weekdays and $420 per hour on the weekends. And the filming permits will continue to go through Monique Herrera in the special events office at Brand Studios. She puts them together with our city clerk's office, and they provide the insurance, and they get all of their film permits for the city as a part of this reservation. And the last fee at the skate camp is our traveling skate camp fee, we'd like to raise it by $5. The skate camp started off as a one-week trial camp one summer, and it was so successful that we moved up to 2 weeks the following summer, and we're now up to 4 weeks during the summer. So we offer 4 separate weeks worth of camp for the kids, and they piggyback on with our day camp program, and they go on one of the field trips with the day camp program. So because it's so successful, and because we haven't raised the rate since we started the program, we felt that a $5 increase was appropriate.
Do you have a lot of the same kids going to all 4 weeks?
We have a few kids that go throughout the whole summer, and then the rest of the kids come 1 week, maybe 2 weeks here and there. It's a little of both. The last fee that we have proposed today is an increase in the swimming lesson rates. We'd like to propose that they are increased by $5 per person per session for the youth lessons, and then the adult lessons, we'd like to propose that they go up by $10 per person per session. And that equals $35 for a youth lesson, which is a 2-week lesson, and $50 for an adult 2-week lesson. And then we also have a 1-week lesson rate, which is $25 for youth and $35 for adults. And we did do a fee comparison with other cities, and these fees are in line with many of the other cities. Burbank, for instance, charges, I believe it's $50 per week for the non-resident youth rates. So we are under the local cities' rates.
Right.
Gabrielle, before we move on to commission comments, there was a section under sports field fees that
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one.
after the
Yes.
advertising banner, beginning with the ball field rates.
Yes, I'm sorry. The ball field rates are the ones we're actually looking to lower. On fields 1, 2, and 3 at the sports complex, these are our baseball fields and softball fields. We found that the participation, the reservation rates have gone down a little bit, and some people have commented that the rates are just too high since the last increase. So we'd like to take a 50% reduction off the last imposed fee. So if we raised the fee by $6 back in July of 2008, we'd like to take it down by $3 now and take it back a step and see if that helps with our rental rates. So the proposed night and weekend rate on field number 1 would go from $46 an hour to $43 per hour. That's our day rate at the sports complex. So it's a proposed rate of decrease. We have a new fee, which is the tournament field prep fee. This would be for tournaments where we have something like the community college or a local group renting all of our fields, and they'd like us to prepare the fields between each game all day long. So that means that we have a staff person out there who drags the field and puts chalk down on the field and makes sure the bases are all ready for them. And that's a proposed $100 per field per day fee to have that staff person there all day long to do that. We have some small soccer goals that are at the soccer field, and we've been finding that people would like to use those. Typically, we hadn't rented those out to groups, and we'd like to start allowing groups to use them. However, the wear and tear on the nets does require that we replace them on a semi-annual basis. So we'd like to impose a $5 fee for the use of those fields, and that would be a $5 per day per set of goals fee. Our league rates, we would like to increase those to offset some of the costs with operations to run the league. We have a website that helps us do the scheduling, and they've raised their rates by $1, and our security, all of these costs have changed. So we're proposing between $3 and $5 increase depending on the league. It's approximately 5%.
And let me just, for clarification, this is the leagues that are adult sport leagues
Yes,
run
these are
out
not
of the
youth
company.
leagues. These are the adult soccer, adult softball, and adult basketball. And we have one last fee, which is just a refundable deposit for our scoreboard controllers. The controllers cost approximately $300 to replace, and people do like to use them, and we're finding that sometimes they don't come home. So we would like to ask for a deposit of $300 that they will receive back as long as the controllers return back.
Good idea.
So the soccer small goals fee was for adults?
That's for private rentals, so it is adults that use it. We have some of the local businesses run adult half-field leagues after work, and they rent the fields out, and they ask that they use the small goals to run a half-field game, so they can get 2 games on one field at the same time.
It's not you see the little kids out there running. Okay, good.
No, it's not for the little kids.
Okay. I was going to say.
No.
Okay. Any comments? Any motion?
Well, I have a...
Or you have a comment?
I have a comment.
Commissioner Khan.
Thank you. When we lowered the fees, when we were lowering the fees on the last time we lowered fees, we were looking at, it wasn't related to sports, it was related to our, help me out,
Civic auditorium.
the civic auditorium, thanks.
Right. And that helped.
And that really helped.
It helped
We
it,
saw
yeah.
a good response from that as well, especially in these areas as it relates to the ball field rates. To me, I would say even more so because we actually want people to go out there and use them. So whether is lowering it by 50% enough?
Right. It's the airplane problem where if it just sits there, you lose money. It ought to be 100%, and whatever the price is to get 100%, that's what we ought to have it at.
Right.
But, I mean, you're going to have to figure that out based on usage. I mean, what's the usage now, do you know?
Our baseball fields are used we have some adult leagues on them, so pretty much they're used from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. every single night, Monday through Friday. We do have reservations on them consistently on Saturday mornings. Saturday afternoons and Saturday evenings is where we have some gaps, and that's where we'd like to pick up some more reservations from this fee decrease.
That may be tough because you're going to get people not wanting to play baseball necessarily on Saturday, so it might be a price issue.
And I fully understand what you're saying, Commissioner Khan. I think it's easier to lower it a little bit, and if it still doesn't work, come back and
that's what was
readjust
going to be
it.
my
I
question.
don't have
It
a
We're
sounds
not
like you
set
have
for a
quite a
year.
bit of capacity. It sounds like there's quite a bit of people there also. I mean, it may be impossible to get people to come there on Saturday night to play baseball. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but it may not be a price issue. It may be like American Dream or
As long as this
American
isn't a
Idol or
year
whatever.
decision, that you can come back.
And our soccer fields aren't included in this because they are 100% booked. We have
Yes,
a waiting
they are.
list for the soccer fields. So we are not looking to decrease those rates because we have enough clientele to fill every hour of the day on those fields.
And then some.
And
Maybe that's something we should look at
Sure, you should raise it.
raising.
That's
Right.
Well,
actually,
Supply and demand.
right. It's called economics.
it wasn't in the body of this report, but the soccer fields, we did propose a slight increase on those fees. So that is included in
did.
here. It's a slight increase for the soccer fields because of the demand for those fields. We think that it can handle it.
Went up 6% or something like that.
Yes.
yeah,
Right.
great.
I'd like to move that we accept the proposed fee adjustments for the sports facilities and programs, noting that you're going to come back with some policies and procedures for us on the advertising.
Okay.
But as it stands, I think I'd like to move it as it is.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Commissioners Bennett,
Yes.
Khan,
Yes, that's fine.
Patrick,
Yes.
Rob Fogel,
It's fine.
and President Sharkey.
Yes.
That was a yes, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work. Very great. Great report. Okay.
Item 6A3, proposed fees for the new Adult Recreation Center.
And President Sharkey, members of the commission, this is our second fee proposal that we have for you this afternoon. This would be for our brand-new facility coming online. So many of the fees that you see here in this chart are based upon that brand-new facility. We're getting closer to that time of being able to open, and we want to be prepared in advance. The fees for the rental spaces themselves is figured by calculation per square footage. And then we have a minimum rate that we charge of $25 per hour for any one room. Otherwise, it's almost not worth us having a rental fee in place. The amenity rental fees at the very bottom of your chart are actually fees that are already approved by the Commission and are in place for all of the other facilities. This would simply adopt those same fees for tables, chairs, and amenities at this facility as well. And then moving on to the other items in the middle, the activity card and the exercise room card. We currently have an activity card fee for seniors that is $10, or is $5 per person annually, and we're wanting to propose a $5 increase. That card has been at $5 for the past 3 years, and this would raise the rate to $10. And then some of you are probably a little confused by seeing the age 40 to 59 in there. We have, several years ago, we defined senior in Glendale as 60 years of age or older, mostly based upon what our funder, LA County, makes as the minimum age for someone to be eligible for our nutritional meals program. And so one of the things that we thought we would try to do with the brand new facility, thinking outside of the box to keep bodies in above and beyond the hours that we would typically operate, was identifying an adult user beginning at the age of 40 to 59 to be able to also use the facility and try to increase some revenue to offset some of the operational costs. Right now, the Adult Recreation Center is only open until 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and our budget allows for the brand new building to be open till 8 p.m. at night. We know from when we expanded the hours at our Spar Heights Senior Center that it has still taken several years to try to get the seniors who come on a daily basis to the nutritional meals program to stay beyond the nutritional meals program into the afternoon, and we in turn even rolled back some of the hours at the Spar Heights Center and now close at 6 p.m. because we just simply can't get them to stay beyond those hours. So we thought we'd try to think outside the box here a little bit with the new building. It's going to be quite a beautiful building, and this way, some of the concerns that we heard from seniors when we opened SPAR to be a community center allowing all ages was that they were worried that children would come in and destroy the place, essentially. So we wanted to remain intact in that we would be an adult recreation facility, but this way allowing adults 40 years of age and older to come into the building, paying just a little bit more money because they're technically not eligible for our senior rate yet, but would help offset some of those operating costs. And because we do have brand new equipment, increased amounts of equipment from the previous facility, this will allow us to increase our profits, to build up reserves, so when it comes time to replacing that equipment, we will hopefully have money in our enterprise reserves to do so. Then also you'll see exercise room membership on here. Again, we've never had an exercise room, fitness facility in any of our buildings other than a gymnasium to play basketball or badminton. The facility that we're putting in at this location will have 6 cardio machines, and then it will also have a total of 7 other dual-purpose or multi-purpose machines in them, a set of dumbbells up to 35 pounds, and a stretching area. So it's not a full-blown 24-hour fitness, but it's enough that if you wanted to start an exercise program and get a full circuit workout in, you will be able to do that adequately. So again, following in line with that 40 years of age and older, coming up with 2 different rates for both 40 to 59 and then 60 years of age and older. And also, when I had originally expressed to George, discussing with him about rates, one of his concerns that he had was, geez, I would hate to have just an annual fee and anticipate it being a high fee. So I had explained to him at a previous municipality that I had worked for, we had a 3-month, 6-month, and an annual membership. So we could offer those varying levels of membership. So if you just simply wanted to try it out for a few months and see if you liked it, or even if you were going to use it, you could do that. Or if you wanted to go ahead and pay for your year full in advance, you could do that as well also. So if you have any questions at this time, I'll be...
Commissioner Ruppel.
In the exercise room, will there be classes?
Commissioner Rottfogel, typically our classes, because we will still have our regular exercise classes that we hold now with the light free weights and our chair exercise classes, yoga, tai chi, we will still have all those. Those will not take place in this exercise room. This will be more like a fitness facility room that you would see at a nice resort is what this facility will be. So there will be adequate room for individuals to move throughout the room and in and amongst the equipment, but those larger classes will take place in our multi-purpose rooms to accommodate those.
And you'd need the activity card to take part in those?
Correct.
Okay.
I also failed to mention to you one of the things that we thought we would do with our activity card. As a secondary benefit to our seniors, we have lots of field trips throughout the year. We have lots of exercise classes and other free or low-cost classes, special events, etc. As a perk to those seniors who have an activity card, we had discussed being able to give a discount to those activity card holders, and a non-holder may pay, if a class is $1 per class, then maybe if you're not an activity card holder, you have to pay $2 per class. So if you bring a friend, a visitor, or again, if you're even if you're 40 years of age, maybe not eligible, you might pay a little bit more. Then, in turn, with our field trip program, if you're an activity card holder, maybe it entitles you to a discount on that field trip. And if you're not an activity card holder, you pay.
Or early registration.
Correct.
Sort of like an ASB card in high school.
Right. The other benefit of this is. Right now, we don't have activity cards on many of our patrons that come to our facility. So what that means is we don't have information on many of these members who are using our facility. We may know them by name, we may see them every day, but we don't have an official address on file, an emergency contact on file, and this will also allow us to have that information so, God forbid, there is something that happens to them, we'll be able to better care for them while they're there. If they are a member of the meals program or case management program, we keep intake files on those individuals, but any drop-in user at present.
Well, you can also mail them and say your 3-month is about to expire.
Correct.
And here's the good deal for.
So it would give us, statistical information on our patrons, demographic information. If we wanted to, somewhere down the line, start a newsletter, we could mail a newsletter or announcements of upcoming events. It would give us a lot more administrative ability to also have the activity card in place.
One recommendation that I would make on the room rentals on the first exhibit is that, based on what you said, that it's not worth it for less than $25 to open the door, and on the nonprofit rates they're under $25, that we do something where we have a minimum 2-hour rental or something that or strictly a $25 minimum rate. So if a nonprofit wants it only for an hour, it's at least $25.
And we can pursue that. We don't currently do that at any of our other facilities. I think one of the reasons we just haven't in the past is we want to try to help our nonprofits who these days don't tend to have a lot of money available to them either. But that is certainly something, if the commission desires that we do, we can look into it.
No, right, but if, exactly,
we let them lose money rather than us.
Yeah, but then have just a minimum, because no one's going to rent a room for only an hour anyway, usually, are they?
They do sometimes rent it for a meeting. They might have a board meeting for an hour, and that's all they need.
But you're absolutely right. We shouldn't be losing money, so there should be a minimum, and that can be part of your motion. Is charge a minimum of $25 if it's just 1 hour.
It looks like
Hours,
there's. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
There's 3 rates that are under $25.
Right.
Well, and maybe I should clarify, our standard rate does not go below $25 per hour. The discounts still apply we always give a 25% discount to our nonprofits, and then our commercial rate is 150% of our standard rate, so that would be a correction on my part.
Right, but if the $25 is really our break even,
right, then it just doesn't go below that.
Yeah, the minimum, have a minimum $25 rental.
There's just a couple other quick comments. Check your math on upper courtyard. It's incorrect.
I did this in Excel, so I was hoping that the computer would help me out, unless I plugged in my calculation.
It's the wrong formula then.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I see what you're saying, for the commercial rate.
Kitchen,
yes.
$55. I assume what that means is they could make a meal for $100 in the kitchen for $55?
Well, typically, at present, we don't rent the kitchen out unless you are renting one of the rooms as well. The only place that we specifically rent out the kitchen alone is the Civic Auditorium, where we have a daily rate. So
it just seems like a low price if they're going to make meals to have. They could use $55 worth of gas, I would assume. anyway, I haven't been in there, but my understanding was this is a commercial kitchen.
Yes, it is.
Yes, I mean, for $55, I might hold a party in there or something.
You got to rent a room to
But
go.
I would say you ought to consider raising it if the kitchen's supposed to be as nice as it is, and
Yes.
if people really are going to go in there and
So essentially, what this means in terms of the calculation, you'll see. Let's say you are renting the room, the dining hall,
right.
on a Friday evening, because there's dining room A and B.
Right.
So it would be $75 times 2 is $150 per hour, plus the $55 for the kitchen. So you would be paying over essentially $200 per
Is
hour.
there a cleaning fee on the kitchens?
We do collect a security deposit on all of the rentals, and if they don't leave, whether it's the kitchen or a meeting room, any rented facility that they use, if they don't leave it in the way that it was given to them, then we have the ability to keep their security deposit, and if additional fees are incurred, then they will be sent an invoice for the remainder of the payment.
Okay, well, all this is a trial,
well, right. It just seemed.
and we only have a half hour left of our meeting,
Right, yeah,
so we have
right.
to
Let's go.
She's trying to get us to move on.
move on
Yeah.
here.
I'll move the proposed fees with the addition minimum $25 minimum fee on the rental spaces.
Could you also add the correction to
And
the
fixing
upper
the math.
courtyard fee?
Change your Excel.
Right.
Yes.
For both
Yes.
nonprofit and commercial.
Thank you. I'll make sure those calculations are correct.
Okay.
Commissioners Bennett?
Is there a second?
Yeah, I think I'll second
Second
that.
it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Bennett, yes.
Yes.
Khan?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Rotfogel?
Yes.
President Sharkey.
Yes.
Item 6B2, 2010 homeless count. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I skipped.
You actually may have jumped the gun. I think we want.
I did jump the gun.
If the commission doesn't mind, we just need to move one item around. Moises will be back with some more information for the
Okay.
presentation. And have
Okay.
Yvette do her presentation.
Oh, okay.
You want the key? Yeah, let me actually hit start slideshow.
We can't blame this one on Gary.
There we go. You're good.
Oh,
Walk fast, Yvette.
Good afternoon, President Sharkey, members of the Commission staff. My name is Yvette Tanvalian, Homeless Coordinator. I'll go really fast. Today I'm presenting you the 2010 homeless count result as we conducted them in January. So in terms of a little bit of background, the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development requires the city's Glendale Continuum of Care to conduct a homeless needs assessment biannually. However, Glendale does conduct it on an annual basis. Per HUD requirements, only persons staying at emergency shelters, transitional housing, and places not meant for human habitations are supposed to be counted for the homeless under the homeless count. For the methodology, the homeless count is conducted over a 7-day period. Normally, the highest volume day is selected as an official point-in-time count, which this year was January 27th, 2010. The coalition has a survey instruments that we use that basically requires to collect information on basic identifying information such as first name, last name, gender, year born and state, and some other special needs information from every individual that's surveyed on the day of and the week of. And the combination of those variables are used to unduplicate the data so that we're able to identify how many homeless persons are accessing homeless services in Glendale. In terms of the data, for the 7-day period, we had over 20 separate programs providing over 1,600 duplicated units of service. On the 27th, we had identified 649 duplicated units of service provided to homeless persons by the nonprofit organizations and the programs. Of those 649, we identified 428 duplicated homeless individuals that are in Glendale any point in time. Some key findings, and I have provided a full report to you as part of your packet that compares the data between 2009 and 2010, so I'll answer questions regarding to that a little bit later. But in terms of specifics of the 428 persons, about 273 individuals were single individuals, 150 were persons with families, and about 19% were children. Comparing that to 2009 data, we had 258 unduplicated homeless persons in 2009, and 157 of those were singles, 118 of them were families, and 57 of them were children. The reasons why the increase in terms of the homeless population were several, one of which is the economy. We had many new families that became homeless because of the economy that were first-time homeless. Second, information was that this year had clarified for us not to include people that were in permanent supportive housing programs. That's about 60 individuals that were counted in the past and weren't supposed to be counted this year. In addition to that, the winter shelter program, which is a seasonal hypothermia program that's funded through county that operates in Glendale at the State Armory between December 1st through March 15th, came back to Glendale. We were operating that program for several years. The last 2 years was in the city of Burbank with a pickup in Glendale. So as a result of that, we had additional 100 clients that we were serving through the winter shelter program that were counted in as part of our homeless count. Some special needs population, 51 individuals, 12% had identified having chronic substance abuse. 89 individuals, or 21%, were seriously mentally ill. 22% suffered from both substance abuse and mental illness. 42 women and children were homeless as a result of domestic violence, and 30 were identified being homeless as a result of domestic violence were men. In terms of senior population, we identified 38 individuals that were over 62 years of age that were seniors, and 45 individuals, 11%, were veterans. In your report, page 7 through about 10, there's information in terms of comparison between the individuals with the special needs from 2009 and 2010. Basically, for the most part, it's pretty consistent in terms of the special needs population. In terms of the percentages, the numbers increased just a little bit. For domestic violence, the number of women and children increased by 12 from 2009 to 2010. In terms of chronic homeless individuals, these are chronically homeless individuals that are in Glendale service resistant. The way HUD defines chronically homeless is if they've been homeless for more than a year or have had at least 4 episodes in the last 3 years and have a disabling condition. We identified 108 chronically homeless in Glendale, and that compares to 105 from 2009. We did place a couple of them in permanent supportive housing program this year. These are some pictures of our Path Achieve Glendale Emergency Shelter and Access Center. Basically, most of our clients go through the Intake and Access Center and stay at the Emergency Shelter program, eventually graduate to transitional housing or permanent supportive housing programs. Here is a picture of Path Ventures clients, which they're serving food for our Path Achieve Glendale clients and also enjoying tennis as one of their workshops, being a participating in the programs. And then finally, New Horizons Child Care Center provides homeless children that are homeless child care services free of charge. That concludes my presentation. If you have any specific questions, I can go ahead and answer them for you.
Your report was great. Whoever put this together.
Thank you.
Very comprehensive. Any comments?
The only comment is I saw the article in the news press today, which I thought was good to be able to highlight it and just kind of let people know where we stand in terms of with the homeless and what the count was and things like that. I think you had mentioned to us last time you were in front of us that the count was being conducted.
Yes.
So thanks for coming back and giving us the information.
It's a great report.
Thank you.
A great numbers, sobering report.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have,
I think we're ready to go back to the item before that.
okay, are we ready to go back? Okay.
6B1, CDBG Consolidated Plan.
Yes, Chair Sharkey, if I may, we have additional information that we would like to hand out with regard to the table which delineates our 5-year strategy for housing, homeless, and community development programs. We thought we would take this opportunity because the 5-year consolidated plan is a strategic planning document required to be submitted by the City of Glendale to HUD, our primary federal funding agency. And the gist of it is that we're talking about a plan that's worth $215 million over the next 5 years that the city anticipates receiving from the federal government to implement community development and housing programs. So we want to take this opportunity to review with you what was contained in that plan. So we're going to have Mr. Carrillo, Senior Community Development Supervisor, walk you through that in 10 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Duran and members of the Commission. Madam Chair, my name is Moises Carrillo, and I'm the CDBG Supervisor for the Community Service and Parks Department. Got to get that name going right. I did want to just present real briefly a summary of the report you have now. What Mr. Duran gave you was some pages that were we found may have been missing from the report. So you can read those certainly at your leisure. The consolidated plan is a HUD document that is required for, I'm going to get this right, here we go, for receiving all our federal funds. As Mr. Duran mentioned, we have about $30 million that we apply for over the 5 years, and in addition to about $185 million in additional funds. So the consolidated plan is really a funding mechanism for the city. It is what we call a blueprint for HUD programs, and in park language we would compare it to a park master plan. It is the master plan for community development housing programs for the city of Glendale, and it's something we use every 5 years and we update every 5 years. The objectives that HUD likes to use for our consolidated plan, for all the plans in the United States, is that it provides the citizens, the residents of the community to provide input, participation in the plan, develop its priorities and the strategies. And we talked about this last meeting when I mentioned we had about 1,300 people directly participate in the plan. So that's a lot of people in our community to really give some direct input into what the strategy and the priorities are for the city. It is also, as Yvette mentioned, part of our continuum of care, where you'll see the comprehensive approach to homelessness involves a consolidated plan. It involves the strategies that are developed by our agencies and individuals participating in that program. So again, it's a very comprehensive document. In terms of specific goals, it's pretty much the CDBG, the ESG, and home. And I didn't put the definitions for that because I remember I talked about this and I wanted to see if you would catch on this. But the CDBG, of course, is the Community Development Block Grant Program, and SHP is the, home is the Home Investment Partnership Act program, and ESG, of course, is Emergency Shelter Grant, and we use these acronyms a lot in our HUD funding. But basically, there's two areas, is the main CDBG, ESG home programs, and then there's the other strategies that we use the funds for, which is Section 8, redevelopment funds, SHP, and Workforce Investment Act funds. So all in all, it's a very comprehensive involving all the federal funds and other state funds for the city of Glendale. To give an estimate on the 5-year funding sources, it's CDBG for $18 million. That's a bit less than the previous 5 years, where it was $19 million. ESG is about $725,000. The home programs, $11,500,000. Again, a little bit decrease from the previous 5 years. HUD is slowly catching up to the needs of the communities and providing funds incrementally to the cities each year.
Do our census numbers affect that number?
Yes, Commissioner Rafago. The numbers that for the census right now are the 2000, and yes, the 2010 census will impact these numbers.
Yeah, it says that in the
up or down, and we hope that the numbers will go up with a complete count committee working on this. But yes, that's a very good question, and I'll address that too in a few slides. This is the other funding that we are expecting to receive for the consolidated plan and strategy. And again, I don't even know that acronym. That one's so new that just came out, the State Homebuyer Program. But those are programs that we have that will provide funding for a lot of housing. Here you'll see the HPRP is as Yvette talked about, the Homeless Prevention Assistance, which is really taking off really well. The Workforce Investment Act, of course, Don Nakamoto will talk about that. So all in all, we have $250 million over the next 5 years, and that goes pretty quickly. The money is spent up in the 5 years.
Let me ask you a quick question before. Can you go back to that slide? So, and I know we don't have a lot of time. That's a 5-year plan that we've projected out, and we're unsure of the economy. We know it's probably not going up in the next year or so. So those numbers, especially like a redevelopment set aside, I'm assuming some of the redevelopment funds will go down, and the capture. Does our funding get adjusted each year, or how does that work?
Well, for the federal grants, it gets adjusted each year. And so sometimes we'll get a little less, sometimes we'll get a little more. Sometimes there's additional funding, as we did for CDBG ARA funds. So it really depends. As far as the set-aside funds, I don't know if they do get adjusted, Ann. I'll let Ann.
Before Ann gets up, that's not to say that every year we have to submit a new 5-year plan or an amended 5-year plan just because those numbers fluctuate. Because there will be fluctuation. The redevelopment funds may go down. The economy may take a little bit longer. We may end up getting an infusion of more economic relief funding like the jobs bill. Mm-hmm. We're thinking that under the most recent jobs bill approved by the President and the Congress that we may in fact get more Workforce Investment Act funds, but we're not sure. So that $15 million may be a little bit more than $15 million. So it will fluctuate, but we don't have to submit a new plan every year when it does fluctuate. So this is a 5-year conceptual plan to give HUD an idea of what we are doing with all of our federal funding and all of the supplemental funding that we get, like redevelopment, in order to implement our housing strategy, which is part of the consolidated plan.
Jess, does it fluctuate based on federal budget? Is that what the fluctuation is?
Yes, it would fluctuate based on the federal budget, right, okay. Based on the state budget, based on new programs. For example, HPRP. 2 years ago, we never would have projected that we would have had an HPRP program. The Section 8 program alone averages $22 million a year. That's been pretty steady. Hopefully, we'll continue to at least be steady. So it'll...
Property tax can affect the redevelopment funds.
Right.
And there absolutely is a direct correlation between the census and our entitlement funding. This is entitlement formula funding. So there's a direct correlation between numbers of persons in Glendale, numbers of those persons that are at different income levels, numbers of those persons that are homeless, that are seniors, that have special needs. There's a very direct correlation.
Okay, we better move along here. Okay, thank you. I was saying thank you.
Just to give you again, and I spoke about this last presentation, just the needs assessment that we take from the community involves reviewing all the demographic data, looking at our needs surveys. As I mentioned, 1,300 individuals participated in our needs assessments and identifying priorities, as well as the CDBG Advisory Committee, which provided input and reviewed all the findings. So our next slide will kind of start showing where our areas are going to be for the block grant program. And Commissioner Rafago just missed this presentation part, but basically you'll see I put up this map to show you how demographics work and how the census works and how changes will happen. The dark shaded lines are the low mod income areas where CDBG funds are eligible. The lines there were in 1990, those areas were CDBG eligible. But demographic changes, the census came out, and in 2000, the only eligible are the gray areas. So you can see how demographics work. We expect with the 2010 to have a shift as well, but we don't know what it's going to be, whether that west side of Glendale along Glen Oaks and Grandview and Western will change into a non-low mod income neighborhood. or grow. So the 2 years from now, we'll know a little bit more of what's going to happen. But our funding is based on these demographic profiles. What we found is that people have moved into the apartment units around Colorado and that area. So that seems to be, we're not losing low mod income people, but they're more gradually living in the center core of Glendale. So all the data we get, we actually come up with a strategy. And we based it on the $2.7 million out of the $18 million in block grant for social services, which is 15% of our funding allocation. And by and large, youth services are our primary priority, and you can add up those to 63% for youth services for child and after school and crime and public safety, which is our kind of our gang diversion programs with the police department. So by and large, 63%. The senior services, again, around 66%, but that's slowly growing. The area that is certainly growing is the homeless programs, where certainly it's increasing annually. And again, this fluctuates over 5 years, but in 1 year it could be 15 to 18% of our funding or higher. But it just fluctuates based on the need and the applicants that are applying for funds. CDBG is also involved with neighborhood capital improvement strategies. Again, you look at our parks and libraries and homeless centers. That is about half the allocation of block grant funds. And again, it varies year to year, but generally over 5 years, we expect to utilize 50% of our block grant funds for the parks and libraries, such as Adams Square Library, and possibly a new homeless service center for PATH at Chief Glendale. The economic development is a smaller piece of our CDBG strategy. And I'm only focusing on CDBG because that seems to be the area that, of course, that we're all involved in. But that is matched by $15 million in, not really a match, but it's about $15 million in Workforce Investment Act funding. That comes from the Department of Labor. And that funds are used for the job center activities that Don will talk about. So we don't spend a lot, but we do have the funding to match the services that really need it down to the job training core. The other funds are used mainly for the business and technical assistance for small businesses. The new area that we're looking at is along Glendale Avenue, just as we did commercial facade on Colorado and Adams Square. Glendale Avenue seems to be an area that we're looking at improving in the next year or two, and start looking at what type of improvements we can do along south of Colorado and Glendale Avenue. Yvette talked about the homeless needs and strategy. I won't get into that, but again, breaking that down, with the funding sources, we do have about 32% going for case management and support services, and about 36% for the newer permanent supportive housing programs. I'm sorry, we'll kind of gloss this out a little bit because I know we don't have too much time, but the housing needs certainly are important for our consolidated plan. And the strategy, although it doesn't involve the block grant as much, it does involve about $59 million of funding sources from redevelopment set aside, the home programs, and the other housing assistance programs. But you'll see how we're generally looking at affordable rental opportunities for people, especially seniors and low-income families. 5-year plan is due to HUD in May, and we're working on our drafts. We're developing the strategies and beginning to develop a core document that will be submitted to council in the next few weeks. But some of the challenges that we saw when writing up the plan is, of course, the diminished resources, the funding levels have not been at their levels they were about 8 years ago. In fact, it's dropped from about 18%. Come back to about 15% of that level, but we're still way underfunded from that level. Of course, the economy is important to note that as the unemployment rate continues to remain high, then of course our resources are used in different areas. I mentioned the 2010 census, and that's the low-income neighborhood changes. And that affects parks because if we're only able to do certain parts of Glendale that remove certain areas, such as Griffith Manor, which is on western Glendale, or it may mean an area like where, let's say, Cerritos it really challenges to define parks improvement projects or other recreational improvement projects. So we're really going to pay attention and really make the push to make sure that people are counted in those areas.
Okay, you know what, how are we on the next reports? Are we?
Well, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
done.
I just,
I didn't want to mention the last census, but that's it.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's just that we've got a bigger department now and less time.
Absolutely. Well, I'll take any
Yeah,
questions.
and especially in this room, I really apologize.
Sure, no, absolutely.
No, I think at this point, it's just the activity reports.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So if you have any questions on the activity reports, we can answer those.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really a great job for a short period of time.
Well, the next meeting
So-
really doesn't start
So I
until
do need to
5.
call them into the record, and then
We're only talking about $215 million.
Okay, we do have to call them into the record, though, so, okay. Go ahead.
6B3A, monthly activity reports, workforce development.
Again, if there are any questions, Don
Do
is
we
here,
have-
Don Nakamoto, to answer any of those questions.
Does anyone? No, we're good?
Okay, at B, we have park services.
Again,
Gary isn't here.
Coco is here. Coco can answer any
Coco's here.
questions from the Park Services end of it.
Okay. Did you want to take 30 seconds to just show the check we got from, just,
Did you want?
this is so nice that we got
Did
this.
not want to do a presentation of that check?
We could hold off till next month to do a presentation.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Front beautiful to.
All right, we'll do that next month. Okay. Because that's important. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, at C, we have recreation and community services.
And again, I'm here if there are any questions at this time, for the sake of time.
Okay, all right. And
Is there anything that you guys want to highlight, like just one thing, or is it?
Well, you know, the volunteer recognition was the big one.
Right.
And we did that
That was
under
great.
presentations.
That was important.
We did have our Easter event, another successful year, and it's kind of a little bit of a lull now until we gear up for all of our summer day camps and summer events, so
Okay.
most everything else is status quo.
And
6B3D, CIP projects.
Just a few things. One is the ribbon cutting of the Cedar Mini Park project. And I
right,
think
that's
you-
May
May
1st?
At
Yes,
10
I believe
o'clock.
that's May 1st. Is it
Right,
10
and I know
o'clock?
Laurel, 10:30. Laurel can't make it.
Oh,
She
that's
has-
10:30.
She had a conflict.
So unfortunately, our project manager, we
Yeah,
ran
she-
out of time.
I do want to mention, she was going to make a
Right.
presentation about the Glendale Beautiful Award for Cedar. And, you know, I want to thank her for doing an outstanding job on that
She
project.
did an outstanding job, and if you want to read more about it, it's in today's Glendale News Press. You can go online, Glendale Beauties, and Glendale Heritage Park was one of the honors.
I think this may be the
received, so-
third one that we've been honored with, so we're
Yes, yes.
doing well.
Well, maybe next time she'll be able to do the presentation, because it's really worth it. But I hope you'll all be at the dedication, who can be there, of our new Glendale Heritage Park.
Do we have dates for Griffith Manor or the ARC yet?
Not yet. I think we're working on the adult recreation date. There's been a slight delay in that project. Still on time. We were thinking we were going to finish it a lot earlier than before, but the rains cost us some delay time. We'll work on that. By next month, we should have a date. We're going to make sure it doesn't conflict with anything Laurel has going on.
Yeah, thank you.
Very busy.
Well, she was at Glendale beautifully yesterday, so
Yeah,
she did get
she
the
was.
presentation of the parks, so. And thank you, everybody, for especially going through the report so fast. I apologize.
And just, if I may just say, you know, the caliber of people we've got now
Yes.
in this department, you know,
It's
Jess,
wonderful.
Yvette, Moises, Don, it's really fantastic. Yeah, so I'm really glad that we, you know, this consolidation's working out. We've got some really good people.
Normally, we have more time, but since we've moved into this, are we going to be out of this room next time, or do we
No,
know?
we have one more
We have
meeting.
one
Oh,
more
my
meeting
goodness.
here.
Okay.
We have one more report to read onto the,
Oh, okay, okay.
and E is CDBG homeless programs.
And she did her presentation. So.
Yeah, it's a great presentation, so.
And I don't believe we have any written communication.
Okay. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Okay. We are adjourned.